Okay, we're live.
We're live.
We are live. Welcome everyone to Monday morning or Monday afternoon in Europe, of course. We are here again with Normandy Equine, Elizabeth Van Ross, and performing horse Monique Myers. Today, Liz is going to talk about baking a cake. Not really, but what does baking a cake have in common with training a horse, right? So she's going to recap a little bit what we've talked about, and then we will at the end, stay till the end. We have some information that we want to give you at the end. But without further ado, because we never know how our connection is going to go, let's get into it. Elizabeth, you have the floor. Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hi. So hi everybody again. So yes, we've been doing this now for a little bit of a while, and you're probably starting to think, when is this actually going to come to any sort of fruition? Well, one of the reasons that we take our time at Normandy Equine is because a lot of people look at a horse and think that it's a finished product, or that it should know an awful lot more than it does. So I keep explaining to my students that actually a rider, just as much as a horse, is a little bit like baking a cake. So you don't, unless you go to the supermarket and buy yourself an already beautifully made cake, you have to make the cake, which means that you have to get the eggs out and the cream and the sugar and the butter. And I'm not a baker, so I have no idea exactly what the ingredients might be, but the spices, the fruit, whatever it is that you're going to put in there. And then once you're ready, you start gently and very carefully putting these ingredients together. And then eventually you get to produce the finished product, which is the lovely cake. Then you have to decorate the cake. I like decorating things. So decorate the cake. Finally, you get to eat it. So it's all a long process. And I go through this process with my riders as well as I do with my horses, because riders that usually come to me have, along the trail picked up quite a few bad habits. And certainly the horses have also picked up some bad habits of their own. Plus, maybe there is some miscommunication between the horse and the rider. So again, and I make this very clear to everyone that we're not proposing for you to change. There's a lot of what you're already doing that is probably fantastic, very correct and very good. So it's not so much about the change at Normandy Equine, it's about choice. It's about being able to get to a point with your horse where maybe you're not quite sure where to go any further, and then have a choice as to different things that you can use, whether it's with me or some other amazing riders and trainers out there. That's fine, but just keep in mind that you always have the choice. You don't have to stay stuck on the path that you are, which is not really taking you anywhere. So we're going to do a quick little recap. So we are going to talk today about the very first exercise that I do with young horses or rehabilitation horses. And what we've been giving you is the ingredients. We've been preparing you for this particular live so that you get it, so that you understand why we do what we do. So the first thing we looked at was the differential between the elbow and the stifle. So if you've got a horse that is very low in its elbow and very high in its stifle, even though the top line is quite even, so bottom line is facing towards the ground, you've got a horse that's already having difficulty with his balance, because as he moves, the whole momentum of his body, the weight of his body changes, and everything's going to swing forward. And as it swings forward, what is he going to do with his head and neck? He's going to go up, because that's his ballast. That's part of his balancing system. So he's going to lift his head and neck, which is not what you've been taught your horse should be doing, right? Your horse should have its head down. And if you have the horse's head down, it stretches its back and it's good for the back, and the back comes up. And there's all this stuff that goes around and around that people are talking about. And a lot of it is based in some pretty good information, but it kind of gets, Chinese whispered along, and it moves from one person to the next, who is interpreting it in a certain way, which is why I always go back to anatomy, because anatomy doesn't lie. You can say whatever you want, have whatever opinion you want. Anatomy is anatomy is anatomy. It will only work the way it's supposed to work. And if you make it work in a way it's not supposed to work, it will break. I can't tell you when, but I can assure you it will. I've seen it. 7 years at an equine hospital, 50 inpatients. I can tell you I'd imagine pretty much anything and everything you can imagine happening to a horse. I'm sure there's plenty more, but in those 7 years, I saw an awful lot. So you can't play around with nature's rules and win. She won't let you. That is definitely definite. So if you do happen to have a horse that is built downhill, whether they're both lines downhill or one of them is downhill, mainly the one on the bottom, the first thing you've got to understand is you've got to work your horse slowly. Now, most of you have had teachers telling you, to move your horse on, get it working, get it, going faster, more forward, more forward, more forward. And that will come eventually. I'm not saying that your horse is going to move around like a snail for the rest of its life. That wouldn't do you much good, or it much good. But when it's learning something new, and when it's learning how to cope with what you want and how its body is built and how its mind works, it needs to go slowly. Remember what it was like when you learned how to ride a bicycle. Remember what it was like when you learned how to drive a car. You had to go slowly. You didn't go 150 miles down the highway or motorway, depending what country you're in, the first day. And in fact, actually, that's illegal. I mean, 80 miles an hour, or maybe even in America, 50 miles an hour. You didn't do that on your first day. Now you do it without worrying about it or thinking about it. But in the beginning, when you were learning, you had to go slowly. Well, guess what? So does the horse. The brain has to have time to be able to understand what you want of its body, and then it needs to be able to understand how to maneuver its body to do what it is that you want it to do. Now, the next thing we looked at was the width of the chest. Now, a nice big wide chest on a horse is going to give you a lot more lateral balance. The horse is as I showed you, Roulette, when I first got her chest was very narrow and her bum was very wide. So think of a tricycle, with one wheel in the front and two wheels behind. It's a little bit wobbly in front possibly, and it needs a little bit of help. So for her in the beginning, it was very complicated to figure out how to do what I wanted her to do. So I had to take a lot of time. But with Bellum, who's got quite a solid chest on him, I was able to move right into something a little bit more advanced because he had lateral balance already. He's got one leg on each corner of his body, and he's quite solid and balanced. Then we moved on to the horizontal points of alignment. So those are quite crucially important for the in-hand exercise we're going to show you today. It is again, just a quick recap. It's the occipital bone, which is right behind the horse's ears, to be aligned with the top of the withers, to be aligned with the tuber sacrale, or the hunter's bump that most of you know. And what's really important about those points is you don't want to try to align the head and tail to the middle. You want to align the middle to the extremities. Much, much, much easier for both of you, for you and for the horse. It is so simple. It's very easy to do. It is counterintuitive though. So when you go to the riding portion of this, it does become a little bit more complex because your instincts are going to tell you something different, but we'll get to that at some other point. The vertical points of alignment, I've introduced them, but that really comes into play in the ridden application of alignment. So we're not going to sort of worry too much about it today, but remember, it is really that central line down the line of your horse, matching up with his sternum, which is right here on us. But remember those big sort of muscles here, they're the pectoral muscles. They kind of form like a little heart, and there's a line in the middle, and that line is where the sternum is. So those lines need to be aligned, but again, that's more ridden work. Then we talked about alignment itself. Why do we want alignment? So as far as I'm concerned, the main reason, there's loads of reasons, but the main reason is for balance. I believe very strongly, because of the work I've done with so many different horses, that balance is key. Now, one of the exercises I make my riders do is I have this little pillow that they stand on. It's made of rubber with air in it, and I make them stand on it and find their balance. And then when they found their balance, I start reading to them. And I read them something that they're then going to have to answer questions to. And then they feel all happy because they're all balanced up there. And then I come up to them and I gently push them. So of course I push them, so now they're out of balance, but I continue reading. And then I do it again, and then I do it again. And then we get to the end, and I ask them questions, and they cannot answer the questions. They just can't, because all their brain's been doing is going, oh my God, I have to balance. Oh, I have to balance. I have to find balance. I have to refine balance. And they're really not happy with me by the end of it, because they, it's struggle. It's a big struggle. So their brain is going like, why? I keep finding my balance. You keep pushing me off it. I find it and then you push me off of it. So it's a very good exercise for the rider to really understand what the horse is going through, because on a circle, the horse is very much struggling, trying to figure out how to balance his body on this very odd figure that he would never make on his own. The only time I really see horses do circles is when they're young foals and they run around their mothers. And I have this lovely video on my Facebook page of a young foal. It was her first day out, and she's running around her mom, and all of a sudden, all four of her legs go and she falls down. So it gives you a really good idea of how difficult circles can be for horses. The exercise we're going to introduce you today is also very important for the beginnings of introducing your horse to the cognitive meaning, so that they understand in a much clearer way of abduction and adduction. So that means taking the shoulder away or the limb away from the body, or bringing it into the body. So if the horse is moving to the right, and this is going to be opposing, so this is my right shoulder, they need to know how to move the shoulder away, and they need to know how to bring this one in. They do this naturally. They know how to do it because but they do it in response to stimulus. So they do it because they don't have enough room in their stable, or they do it because they're afraid of something, or they do it because there's something happening underneath their feet. So there's all sorts of reasons why they do it, but we're teaching them how to do it by thinking. Like, we want you to move this limb here and this limb here for a very specific reason, because we're trying to get your limbs back under your chest so you can be in balance. So that's a very important key here. Then we talked about focus. So this is for the rider. Now, your horse will not focus if you don't focus. If you're not focused, your horse's brain will be all over the place. He will be inspecting his environment just like you would expect. He'll be sniffing, especially if there's a bit of nice fresh poo on the ground, or even old poo. Oh, who was that? I have to figure out who that was. Or this morning, for example, I worked 2 young horses. They were very interested in the leaves on the ground because they thought that might be a really good snack. Or they're looking over the hedge to see if there's other horses. They call to see if there's another horse. Their brain is all over the place, okay, looking for stuff, and that's perfectly normal. But you are the one that have brought them into the school to do something with them. That is your decision. Yet a lot of you bring with you your entire life into the arena. So you bring your wife, your husband, your children, your friends, your job, your house, your car, anything and everything that is in your head, rather than saying, right, I've arrived at the yard or the barn, and I am going to now work with my horse and spend a few minutes just saying, all the rest of you, I love you dearly, but stay away. You're staying in the car. I'm not taking you with me. You've got to do that. You've got to separate yourself from your life and concentrate on this animal whom you are demanding something from, who has no interest in what you're demanding from him. He loves your attention, loves the carrot you might be bringing, loves the scratching you might be doing, loves the soft voice in which you speak to him. He loves all of that, but has no emotional connection to the work that you're making him do. You have got to find a way to make that work pleasurable for your horse so that he also understands that working with you is fun. So if your brain is off on a tangent thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, or, you know, why did your husband make you angry this morning, or why are your children not doing their homework, or why is your mother, you know, being so demanding, or whatever it might be, you're not focusing on your horse, and your horse knows it. Your horse knows it. Your horse is not going to say to himself, there's no connection. You're doing your thing, he's doing his. And then when he doesn't do what you want, because you kind of basically got him in the picture as well, you get frustrated and possibly angry with an animal who's like, I don't know what you want. You know, what are we doing? I don't know. Why am I doing circles? Why am I on the end of this thing? Why are you on my back? He has no clue. You have to explain this to him. And to do that, you've got to be focused. So now we're going to go into the explanation of the exercise. So the last time that I was on, or that we were on, Monique and I, we asked you to get your horse out of the stable, put him on the lunge line, and just observe what he does. Not ask him for anything, you know, ask him to walk, obviously, so he is in movement, but just observe what he does. You know, is he falling in towards you and the lunge line is dipping down to the ground? Are you being pulled off your feet because he's dragging you to somewhere where he wants to go? Is he going fast? Is he going slow? Is he tripping? Is he shying at something? You know, just observe his behavior and really start to focus, because a lot of people get their horses on the lunge line and I call it an energy dump. All they want to do is get as much energy out of this horse as possible so that they can feel safer when they get on. Okay, and I understand that. I do not like putting my rear end on the back of a horse that I think is going to explode and be difficult and run around, you know, without any connection between the two of us. It's a little bit like getting into a car, starting, and then realizing you have no steering wheel. It's not a fun feeling. But what you are teaching your horse when you do this energy dump is that every time you put him on the lunge line, he just goes around at 100 miles an hour, and he gets fitter and fitter every time you do this. He's not getting fit in a very good way, not in a very sound way, but he will get more and more. So you're going to have to spend more and more time doing this lunge line routine with him and waiting for him to be calmer. So the first thing that we want you to do is to really think about that, really think about, and we will talk about different exercises you can do to start your session, but we don't have the time today to go into all of that. So today, what we are explaining to you is that when you stand in the middle of your circle and you make your circle, you are not to move your feet. You can move them to make your little turn around. You're not going to just twist your body. You will turn around, but on that spot, because if you start moving with the horse, you disturb the circle so that the horse never gets an idea of what the circle is all about. So you stand there in the middle and you're going to observe. So if the horse comes to the end of the lunge line, you've got to release your arm. It's going to be very tempting for you as he comes to the end of that lunge line and applies pressure to pull. You don't want to pull. You want to let him take the length of your arm out all the way. And when he's there, you're just going to resist. So you're allowed to resist, but the minute you pull, you're teaching him resistance and you're teaching him to pull as well. So you do that and he will feel when he's pulling against himself, but he won't feel you pulling against him. So basically you're a tree. The horse has come to the end of the lunge line and he can't go any further, but the tree never pulls on the horse. So that's what you're going to deal with as far as the horse leaving the circle through his outside shoulder. But now let's say he's dipping towards you. So now he's turned his nose a little bit to the outside and his shoulder is coming towards you. So you've got the lunge line that is now dragging the ground. So what you're going to do at this point is keeping focused, your eyes on his shoulders. You're going to make one step towards his shoulders, and then you're going to wait. So if you have to make that one step and then move the next step and then move the next step so that you keep following him, you've got to wait until all his legs have moved and he then moves away. So this is the beginning of getting the horse to move through his shoulders. you're not going to hold him on the outside, but obviously you can't do anything about the fact that he's gone all the way out. So he will distort a little bit to the outside, but he can't distort any more than you allow. But you certainly can replace the shoulder, and this begins a conversation. The horse starts to understand, oh, you step towards me, I move the shoulder. And what you're doing in that moment is you're aligning your horse. You're taking the middle bit of him, the shoulder, the part that deviates the most, and you're pushing it back between the nose, or between the head, or the occiput, to be very, very correct, and the tuberous sacrale, or his pelvis. So you're getting those structures to realign. So when the horse is out of alignment, it's a bit like a hose of water. When you take a hose and it's flat on the ground and the water's going through, it comes out quite powerfully. The minute you bend your hose, the water stops or slows way down, and the energy no longer can move through. And then you have to unbend it to get the water going. I'm sure any of you gardeners out there have had that experience. So this is the same thing. Every time your horse deviates through his shoulders, he's bending the hose and he's stopping the energy. So the energy is not able to flow. So this is the explanation of the exercise. There is so much more to it. This is a very basic thing, but you can at least take this and start playing with it. Now we've got a little video we're going to show you in a minute, but first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the horse that's in the video. So Eol is a young horse. He's about just about 4 years old. And he was started under saddle as a 3-year-old, very traditional French way of starting horses, which is he lived in his field until he was 3 with a bunch of other 3-year-olds. He came in from the field and within 1 week had a bridle put in his mouth, a saddle put on his back, a rider on his back, and very soon after that was taken off to a competition. So that's how it's pretty much done. And there's, you know, I'm not saying that every French trainer does it that way, but it is pretty traditional to do that sort of thing. So it's a quick turnover. It's a quick, you know, 3-year-olds, right, let's get them sold. So let's get them ready very quickly. He didn't really respond very well to that because of the fact that he is one of these horses built like this. And in fact, until he was just about 4, he was double down. He was down in his wither to croup relationship, as well as his elbow to stifle. So he was really struggling. So he's now grown in the top line, which means his chest has expanded, but his legs have stayed shorter in front than in behind. So he's actually quite dramatically downwards. So in the video, what you're going to see is one of my young riders. She is just demonstrating. So the movement she's making towards his shoulder is very exaggerated so that you get to see what she's doing. And then you can watch this video over and over again. So you can watch what she does, and then you can watch what he does, and then you can watch what she does and watch what he, so that you can see that as she moves, she's just, as she leans forward, it's putting pressure. Like if I do this and come very close to the camera, you're all probably want to go to do that, because it's just normal that as someone enters your personal space, even if it's on screen, it feels a bit uncomfortable. It's the same sort of thing we're doing here. We're just saying to Eol, you know, your shoulders have come in, you need to bring them back out. We're going to ask you to do that. And you can see it quite clearly in the video. It's a tiny little clip. I think it's less than 3 minutes. And you can keep watching it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And this is the thing with these videos, and everything I'm giving you is information. If you only watch them once, your brain will not absorb the information. You've got to watch them over and over and over again. And then any written material, you've got to read it over and over again, because in the first reading, you get maybe 10% of it, or as far as understanding is concerned, you can read the same words over and over and over again, but by the time you've read them 100 times, the 100th time you'll go, oh, I get it. Because you think you understand, because you understand the meaning of the words, but you don't understand the meaning behind the words until you've done it over and over and over again. So we're now going to show you the video. This is a quick wrap up of everything. I hope it's made some interest. And now let's look at the video. So here we have this very young horse who's had very traditional training up till now, who doesn't realize that there's much of a conversation going on. And what we're trying to ask him to do is exactly what you've been building up to until today, is to move his shoulders away as we move towards him. So when he's leaning on that left shoulder, you will see the rider make one step towards his left shoulder until he moves his shoulders away from her. Voila, perfect. That's lovely. And away and back onto all four of his legs. Okay, so you know, in the first watching of that, you're going to go, what happened? What? I didn't see anything, because your mind, your eyes are not attuned to it. I see it clearly. It's like, oh, and there he moves over. When he goes off to the right towards the blue barrels, you'll see that his nose comes to the inside, and there she's having to resist. So she's not pulling on him, but she is not letting him go any further, but his shoulders have drifted to the right. Then he comes around the corner, and then as he comes around the corner, he drifts to the inside. You just watch the lunge line. So what you're going to do when you watch this video and watch it over again and watch it over again and watch it over again is watch how the lunge line goes taut and where he goes with his head, because when the horse is on all four of his feet and is in balance, he will, of his own volition, carry his head and neck right in front of him, which is where we go into that alignment of the line of the head and the sternum. So hopefully this gives you a lot of information. You have a question, Monique?
Were you able to hear the video?
Yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it gives you quite a lot of information. You know, have a play around with it. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know. Keep in mind, these are just quick lives. We're just trying to get a lot of information out there to you guys, to give you this choice, to give you other things to play with, so that you start to understand your horses a lot better. And that's it for today. So hopefully if you have questions, please let us know. And over to you, Monique.
Wonderful, Elizabeth. Thank you. I will definitely go play with that all week. I will get him out and let him do what he wants while I'm in the middle. That is key, right? It is making that choice to not interfere and to not make your horse do anything, to not have your agenda constantly there. Because we've been taught one way, right? It's so easy to fall back into what we've been taught, which is move faster, go on. So anyone, please put your comments in, share this video with people. It's just going to get better and better and better. We'll be on very regularly, twice a week. Share this and give other people a choice as well. The person that interacts the most with us, I'm going to repeat this, will each month will win a beautiful design bag designed by Liz. It's for the love of horses. Excellent. Yeah, I love that one. And even more important, a full hour consultation for you and your horse with Liz by Zoom. And you can bring in videos. And if you have a video, if you do this exercise and you can have a friend videotape you, place it in the comments, and maybe Liz will put a little remark beneath it. So, get in touch with us, reach out to us. We're here twice a week and giving you a choice.
Great. Just one more quick little thing. Also on your circles, don't keep your horses on the circle more than 3 or 4 at a time, and then give them a break, go for a little walk with them, and then start a new circle, because that's very stressful on their joints, and until they're balanced, you're putting a lot of shear forces on the tendons and things. So just keep them, and then we'll talk about how it maneuvers up into the trot and the canter. Okay, thanks.
Enjoy your horses. Go play.
Yeah. Bye.